Hello, hello, and good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you may be in the world today. You're very welcome in the second of our How To series of webinars. Those of you that joined us last time, remember it was all about how to create your test strategy for ServiceNow. Today, we're going to talk to you about how to upgrade ServiceNow fast. We're going to share our best practice approach and our assets for upgrading ServiceNow in 24 hours. And by means of an introduction, I'm Thomas Nikolopoulos. I'm the CRO, the Chief Revenue Officer for AutomatePro, which is an innovative and high-growth test automation and DevOps software provider. We're a UK-based business, but our customers are global, large ServiceNow customers. And today, our speaker is Paul Chorley, who is the CEO and co-founder of AutomatePro. Prior to starting AutomatePro, Paul was enterprise-level program manager, and he brings with him a wealth of experience in deploying, managing, and upgrading ServiceNow platforms across large enterprises. I will shortly pass the floor over to Paul, and just to let you know that our event today is planned to last for about 35 minutes, give or take a few, and hopefully that will give us some time at the end to answer any questions that you have. Please feel free to use the chat function in your control panel to put any questions throughout the presentation, and we'll pick those up at the end. The event will be recorded, and we'll send you a video of the event as well as a copy of the slides and the assets that we will refer to during the call. So thank you all for joining. I hope you enjoy it today. And Paul, over to you.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Let me just do a quick tech check to make sure. Yeah, there I am on the screen. Hopefully, yeah. Can you still see me, Thomas?
I can see you and I can hear you.
Fantastic. And everyone can see the slides as well. Never quite sure when you're presenting who can see what. All good? All good. Fantastic. Thank you, Thomas, for the introduction and setting the scene for today's session. My name is Paul Chorley, CEO and co-founder of AutomatePro. We founded the business back in 2013 and been on this amazing journey ever since. One of the things that we like to do right at the beginning, Thomas, and I don't know if you've enabled this, but just check that everybody can chat, because I am going to ask during the session for some input from you guys. So it'd be great if you could just check that you can type into the chat, put your name and where you're calling in from today, say, just so that we can check that everything's working. And Thomas, if you could let me know if that's working, okay, and then we'll press on. Is there anybody? Oh, is people typing? Because I'm not sure I can see the responses.
I can see them, Paul, but I'll keep an eye on this through the event.
Fantastic, thank you. That's great. So that's working as a way of people communicating with us, which is brilliant. Great stuff. So it must be every single day when we're talking to ServiceNow customers that somebody says to us, and pretty much on every call that we have with a ServiceNow customer, they say that upgrades are the single biggest pain when they are a user of the ServiceNow platform. And they say, how can we do it faster? You know, they want to be able to make the whole upgrade process slicker and quicker. And in the time that we've been running AutomatePro and building our platform to accelerate the testing and the development of the release process on ServiceNow, what we've realized is that the customers that are able to upgrade very, very quickly do four major things they do really, really well. And what we wanted to do in this session today was to share those four secrets with you. So what are the four secret ingredients for really accelerating the ServiceNow upgrade process? So you're going to learn that today. So hopefully you'll go away with something really useful from the session today. I need to click there in order to move on to the next slide. And anyone who's been involved with ServiceNow, and I guess one of the reasons why you're on this webinar today is because you probably have at some point felt a bit like this guy on the screen with regards to upgrades, that they are a painful process. And it's really interesting, actually. I was on a call with a customer earlier, and they said what ServiceNow upgrades are. They come twice a year. They should be something you look forward to, because they are offering new capabilities, new modules, new features, better security. I heard a news article this morning that I think something like 44% of organizations have suffered some sort of security attack. So, making sure that you're on the latest version of ServiceNow is really important to protect yourself from those kinds of attacks. So we don't want upgrades to be painful, and we hear that they are currently painful, and so we need to do something about making them quicker and faster. The two biggest challenges that everybody tells us that is the challenge with upgrades is the amount of time that it takes to perform the upgrade, in terms of the duration. Anything up to, we hear stories of upgrades taking 3 months for some customers. That's it's a huge investment, especially if you're doing, if you did 2 upgrades a year, that would be 6 months of the year you're spending just doing upgrades. So most people don't do 2 upgrades a year because of that. So then you're not staying on the latest version, not getting the chance to use all of that capability. So it's very typical to hear of upgrades taking a long time. And then the second problem, which kind of compounded with that, is how much resource it takes to perform the upgrade. So we hear stories of teams of 15, 20 people being put into the upgrade process. And that, of course, means that they're not doing something else that could be more valuable. So it's kind of a perfect storm almost of in terms of the amount of time and resource and cost that upgrades are consuming. And we were thinking about how to sort of map this out, and I'm going to do a bit of a drawing for you, or I'm going to try to anyway. I'm going to draw on the screen, and please forgive my poor drawing skills, but I'm going to do my best to sort of sketch out the how we kind of present that upgrade landscape. So hopefully this will work. Yeah, perfect. ServiceNow upgrade landscape. So going back to, and I did say my handwriting wasn't very good, and now you can see why I said that. And it's very tricky drawing on the screen. And what we see is if we put those two kind of things on a 2-dimensional matrix, you've got the amount of resource that's being consumed along the bottom axis down here, and at one end of the scale, you've got the kind of current situation where there's a whole bunch of people that are involved in the upgrade process, and at the other end of the scale, you've got sort of minimal resource down that end of the scale. And then on this dimension, if we plot the kind of the time dimension or the pain, we've got at the bottom here, we've got a very painful release process, and at the top, where you want to get to, which is very, very painless releases. So what does it feel like to be at the bottom? This is where your upgrades are taking 3 months to do. They consume a lot of energy. Maybe you've got lots of issues as a result, so things escaping into production. So you've got people running around after the upgrade's been done, fixing issues, resolving things. So that's what it feels like to be at the bottom there. At the top here, at the opposite end of the scale, if it's painless, you're talking about upgrades in less than 24 hours, which is possible. There are no issues, and it's a nice place to be. So they're the opposite end of the scale. And actually, if we map out this as a 2-dimensional grid, then you can sort of put people in one of 4 of those quadrants. And if I just change my pen type to be something like this, obviously this quadrant down here is where we hear that a lot of ServiceNow customers are. So not only are the upgrades consuming a lot of resource, but they're also taking a long time and often result in issues. So we tend to find when we ask people kind of where they are on this matrix, they tend to put themselves somewhere in that box. There are some ServiceNow customers who sort of fall into this area where things are a bit less painful, they're using less resources, but they're still tripping over lots of issues. So maybe they're skimping on the amount of testing they're doing. So it's not consuming a lot of resource, but equally they're taking a high sort of risk approach. Then we've got people up in the top left-hand quadrant. Maybe they've done some amount of automation, so they're able to speed things up a bit, but it's still consuming a lot of resource. It's still not ideal. And then we've got other customers who are up in this quadrant up here, which is the kind of green area. So this is a nice place to be. This is where upgrades are not consuming a lot of resource, but they're done very quickly or quite quickly, and there are no issues, there are no quality issues. So that's a pretty good place to be. But there is another area which is kind of where everyone is aspiring to be, and where everyone, anyone that's been involved in IT for any amount of time knows that really we should have advanced from the sort of mandrolic days of pain of things like upgrades to a better land. And this kind of area here we call the super green area, and this is where really where people want to get to. And what does it feel like to be in that area is that upgrades are almost a non-event. They just happen. They just, or one person used the term, they are invisible. So they don't need to be a big fuss about them. They just happen. They're just part of the process. And the companies that are able to get to this place, so often they start here and move kind of in this direction and then there and there. It is a maturity journey, and there are companies that are able to make that journey. And the way that this is done is to move towards kind of CI, continuous integration, continuous delivery, through automation, and but not just any automation. A lot of talk at the moment about intelligent automation and tools that actually automate automation, and we'll talk about that a bit later in the webinar. So that's how you're able to get towards the super green area. It would be great if you're probably thinking in your head for your customer, or if you're a partner, where your customers are kind of on that grid. It's a natural thing to sort of want to put yourself in there. So thinking about your organization, it would be great if you put it, just dropped in the chat where you would put yourself on that chart. Would you be in the bottom left or top right or super green area? It would be great to know kind of whereabouts you are on that journey. I can't see the chat responses, but maybe Thomas, if you read out a couple of them for me, if you could. Thomas, are you still there?
Hi, Paul, I'm here. Not sure I can see any questions or chats. Give me a minute.
So tap in the chat. Oh, hi. Oh, Brad. I saw Brad from Canada. Hi, Brad. So
there's quite a few people
that
are saying hello in the questions, but nobody yet has replied to your question just now, Paul.
Okay, all right, fantastic. So we tend to find that people say they're either in the red area or they in the yellow area, but everybody without fail is looking to make things better and move their way towards the green area. So And that's just a nice way to kind of see where you are. Later on in the webinar, I'll show you a kind of upgrade scorecard that we've come up with that helps you understand where you are in a bit more detail on that, and where you and how you can get to be more in the green area. So we'll cover that a bit later on as well. Fantastic. Let's go back to the slides. And so I talked earlier about how there's some common things that customers do that allow them to upgrade very quickly on ServiceNow. And there's 4 things that we saw when we were looking and talking to customers about what they were doing to speed up the upgrade process. And it boiled down to 4 things that they did. And so we've put them into a quadrant, which we're going to share with you. And so you can take that away and apply that to your particular bit of business. Let me just switch on to there. So I'm going to draw again. Apologies for that, for my my drawing capabilities. But it's another one of these quadrants. And if I do that, and this is the FAST upgrade. I need to work on my handwriting quadrant, or my ability to write on the screen. So nice and simply, the 4 things that we find that customers that upgrade quickly do boils down to these things. And sometimes people sort of say, well, that sounds obvious, but a lot of these things are obvious. But until they're kind of mapped out for you, then you don't really see that sometimes the obvious things are just what you need to do to speed things up. So without fail, everyone who is successful with quick and fast upgrades follows a framework. So what do we mean by that? I'll go into more detail in that in a second, but a set of steps, a repeatable process by which they do the upgrade in terms of planning it, preparing for it, testing it, getting ready for it, documenting it, and so on. So a repeatable framework by which you can follow. Second thing that successful companies do is to automate the processes. And we're not just talking about test automation here either. We're talking about automating all of the aspects of being able to do the upgrade, including things like documentation. So the ability to automate all of those dimensions is very important to the speed at which you can do the upgrade. The third thing that is important is to make the process simple. And by that, we mean an upgrade process that is able to be carried out by non-technical people or lower skilled people. So you're not using ServiceNow developers' critical resources to perform the upgrade. So there are methods by which you can simplify the upgrade process that enables that to happen. And we'll cover a little bit more detail later on what those techniques are. Fourth one sounds really obvious, which is to test, but I'll dig in a little bit later as to what we mean by testing. There's good testing and there's bad testing. There's intelligent testing, and there's the sort of testing that doesn't really add any value. So the companies that upgrade very quickly are very effective in the way that they test and the approach they take to testing. And if you do those 4 things, it's not a coincidence that the first letter of each of those parts of the framework are FAST. And that is, if you follow those 4 things, then those contribute to being able to upgrade very, very quickly. So let me dig into each of those in a bit more detail. The first one of which is the framework. So by the way, all of the things that I'm covering today, at the end, I'll show you how you can get those assets. So we have those prepared for you as well, so you can take those away and utilize them yourself. So in terms of the framework, we've boiled the framework down to 6 steps. And if you're drawing on my if you're copying me as you're going along, then you can draw 6 lines like that. And it boils down to 6 steps for the upgrade process. I'll take you through each one of those as we go along. So this is the framework. This is the F of the quadrant, that you need a framework. And the 6 steps that we've used time and time again to upgrade people very, very quickly. Some of these steps sound very, very obvious, but they are, you need to ensure that you do them and that you do them in a certain way to ensure success. So the first one is to plan. It sounds obvious, but actually, you know, it's much more than just producing a Gantt chart or a list of tasks that you need to do to perform the upgrade. And anyone that was in the test strategy session that Thomas mentioned earlier on being able to create a test strategy for ServiceNow may find that this little diagram that I'm drawing here familiar. So this is a test strategy matrix that helps you assess the business criticality of the process that you wish to test as against the how configured that part of ServiceNow is. So you're able to use this technique to prioritize the tests on a 2-dimensional matrix so that you focus your testing effort and your regression testing effort on the key areas. So hopefully that little diagram there that I've just been drawing reminds you that the planning is as much about planning the list of tasks as it is about planning the approach to the upgrade. Which parts of ServiceNow do we need to test? Where are the risk areas? Where do we need to focus? So that's the planning element, and we have some tools and techniques for helping with that. The second part, I need to go back to my green or my black pen, is to define. This is a fairly obvious step in terms of you needing to be able to define your tests. So once you've worked out which business processes you want to include in your regression testing, you then need to go and define those. So you need to make sure that you define those tests following best practice, things like doing end-to-end test definitions, but most importantly, defining what the acceptance criteria are. And there has to be something that can either pass or fail, not be open to any interpretation. So there's some techniques around how to define the test that you want to run. The third step, and this is one that we see that people often miss or skip in the upgrade process. Again, it's one of these things that sounds obvious and it is when you've been told it, but if you don't have a baseline set of test results against your current version of ServiceNow, then how do you know that the upgrade has introduced that error or whether it was already in your system? So establishing a baseline set of test results around, you know, what actually works and what doesn't in your current version of ServiceNow is really super important, and it actually helps with the next stage of our 6-stage framework, which is to compare with the new version. So by establishing your baseline, you're able to see that you know, these things worked on your current system, and on your upgraded version you've got these things were broken. Now it's amazing how many customers we've spoken to, and they've found a defect in their upgraded version of ServiceNow, and then when they go back to their current production version, they find that that's actually a defect in their current version. So the ability to be able to establish that baseline and compare very, very quickly is key to success with the upgrade process. And then the next step is upgrade readiness. And this step is all around preparing for what everybody dreads in most organizations is the change control board. So the ability to be able to go to the change board with all of the evidence that you've executed all of these tests. These are the defects that were found. You've got all your UAT results. You know, everybody's signed off, all the different stakeholders have all signed off their testing and approved what they're going to do. So there's largely a kind of documentation exercise. Have we got test results? Have we got UAT signed off? You know, have we got all the documentation? So you've got to get that stage ready. And then the final one, which is you've done all of that stuff well, then there's the actual upgrade process itself. So scheduling the upgrade, doing any post-upgrade activities, and checklists are great for that kind of process. So that's the framework. As I said, later on, we've got the ability, you can drop us a line and we'll ping this stuff over to you in a better presented format than I've drawn on the screen. But the F of FAST is for framework, and if you follow that as a process, it's very repeatable, tried and tested, and makes the whole thing a lot easier and a lot quicker. Back to my slides. That's the so we've covered F is for framework, and as I mentioned, we've got that in a nicely presented format, so that you're welcome to have these assets. We love sharing this stuff. It's all about learning and making things better. Excuse me. So these are the 6 steps we've just gone through. Now, moving on to the A for A is for automate automation. So automation must be one of the words that's banded around the most at the moment, and automation is great, but it's only great if it actually makes things better. And what we think automation is all about is actually making life better by automating automation. So what do we mean by that? We mean things like, if you're going to create automated tests, you need to be able to create them automatically. So there's no manual process in developing the tests in the first place. So test creation is really key. Let's automate the test creation process. Things like documentation. We know that you can't get away from needing to produce documentation for auditors, especially in highly regulated organizations. You need to have traceability of requirement through to tests to defects. You need to update user documentation, training guides, those kinds of things. Again, especially in highly regulated organizations, if there's a change of UI, in many countries around the world, you have to issue a new user guide with the screenshots updated. So this is all part of being able to go faster with upgrades, is to be able to create those things automatically. So that's what we mean by automate automation. And user acceptance testing. So we often an upgrade process is only as fast as UAT can be done. And it can be a big bottleneck for organizations if they can't do UAT quickly. So we need tools that speed up the UAT process if we're going to really accelerate our upgrade process. S is for simple, and what do we mean by simple? We mean a set of tools that allow non-technical people to be able to perform the upgrade process. So if we can get people that do not, are not ServiceNow developers or sysadmins to help do the upgrades or upgrade testing and look at the results and things like that, then it's going to simplify the process and not tie up those scarce resources doing manual activities. We talk about things being business readable, so removing the any technical language from things. Let's have this in a form which is understandable by business process owners. So if they're looking at test results, for example, that they're able to look at those results and understand the outcomes. There's no sysids in there, for example, or big dumps of code exceptions. That's that's not going to simplify the process. It's not going to speed it up if it's technical and too difficult to understand. And that points to the ability to use low-cost resources. Talk about being able to speed up the upgrade process, but wouldn't it be great as well as if we could use lower cost resources to perform those upgrades on a regular basis? So the T of FAST is for test intelligently, and one of the things that we really advocate is that any testing that is done really follows very closely what the business scenarios are that the business actually perform on a daily basis. And it goes back to the test strategy that we covered in the previous webinar. You know, think about the processes that your business is performing and align your test scenarios with those as closely as possible. At the end of the day, on a Monday morning after an upgrade, it's going to be users that come in and try and perform those processes. So we need to have aligned our tests with those to make sure that they're going to work following the upgrade. So we're big advocates of following the business process. And following on from that, the following of the business process from end to end. So we know now that ServiceNow is not, you know, doesn't live in its own bubble. It's connected and integrated with other platforms. And often business processes span more than one system. So you're going to need to follow it from one system to then into ServiceNow and into another system and into, you know, maybe a third-party system as well. So that ability to be able to test intelligently across all of those platforms from end to end is really key. And those integrations, touch on this really is about being able to test those integrations. A customer mentioned to me on a call earlier today, actually, that they often wouldn't know that a third-party system had been changed such that it broke the integration with ServiceNow. So we need to have tests in place that intelligently test those integrations and that we get early warning of that. So, you know, we don't know about that change 3 months down the line when it's too late to do anything about it. We know about it as soon as it happens. So we're always on top of those changes and know about those things before they catch us out. I think one of the key things, you know, that the upgrade process, we talked to so many customers where the upgrade process is still, you know, a largely manual set of activities, whether that be testing or updating documentation or, you know, planning or managing defects or, you know, screenshots and things. And that's fine, but it's never going to allow you to be able to accelerate or get to that super green area that we mentioned very early on in this session. So in order to be able to move to super green, you need to automate all of those processes. And a lot of what I've talked about today, we've built into our platform, which allows you to really accelerate and get to that super green area. So things like automated documentation, the ability to baseline your results against your current version, and then compare those to the upgraded version. Things like automating user acceptance testing so that UAT becomes almost like a tick box exercise of just reviewing what's happened. So we've learned from what we've understood of the challenges and how to do things well, and we've built those capabilities into the AutomatePro platform to make things better. And that's, we believe, you know, how you get to the super green area. And we've got many of our customers who celebrate being able to do upgrades very, very, very quickly. Just conscious of the time, and one of the things that we want to do, and we're more than happy to do, as I say, we have got a lot of experience with doing ServiceNow upgrades, and we've come up with what we call the upgrade scorecard. So this is kind of like almost like an audit of where you are with your audit, where you are with your upgrades. And we use a number of these different criteria to go through that with you and understand where you are with your current upgrade process, so which bits are particularly challenging for you. We'll give you a score on each of those different things. Then we can see where you are and see how you could get better in certain areas and mature those processes in order to do it faster. Many companies are coming to us to help with their upgrade. They see that as a big challenge. and we recently launched an upgrade service. So quick plug for that at this point. So if upgrades are really giving you a pain and you don't think you've got the resource or the energy to be able to do that quickly and effectively, we can come in, use our people who are experts in this stuff, use our platform, and come in and just remove that upgrade pain so that you can get on and focus on more important things in the platform. So if you're interested in having the free upgrade assessment, ping an email to hello@automatepro.com or the upgrade service. Similarly, ping us an email. Be happy to talk to you. My voice is going. I've done a lot of presenting today, so it's getting a bit dry. Final thing, all of the assets which we've talked about today, I know I've whizzed through it pretty quick time, so hopefully that's been useful for you, but we're more than happy to share this stuff with you. So if you found it helpful, ping an email over to the email address at the bottom there, and we'll send through either the framework or if you missed the test strategy session the other day, we've got the matrix, we'll send that to you. The quadrant, any aspect of what I've talked about. We love talking about this stuff. I'm more than happy to delve into any aspect of it in more detail, or give you a demo of the AutomatePro platform, which automates what we've talked about today. So hopefully that's been useful for you. I'm conscious if I don't stop, Thomas is going to interrupt me and say that it's time for questions. So Thomas, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. That was perfect timing, in fact. We've had a few hellos and chats from the audience. One question that has come through, and it's fairly specific to our software product. So
Okay.
I'll paraphrase the question. It's what is the impact to AutomatePro's software as a result of new functionality delivered in the recent releases with ServiceNow, specifically the Upgrade Center that came out with Paris and the Instant Scan that came out with Quebec. So I don't know if you have a position to that.
Yeah, so actually I was asked this earlier on a call. So we're a supplementary tool that also helps speed up upgrades. I know ServiceNow have put some new stuff on the Upgrade Help Center, which is great. We're actually having some conversations at the moment with ServiceNow about being added to the Upgrade Center as an additional way of speeding up the upgrade process, because of course ServiceNow want to get their customers on current versions as quickly as possible. So there's some discussions going on around that. I see AutomatePro as a tool that helps with the assessment of the impact of the upgrade very much from a user process and business process point of view. So there are tools on the Upgrade Help Center now which help you to make some assessment of that, but it's not gonna, those tools are not gonna tell you whether on a Monday morning somebody comes in and tries to request a desktop off your service portal or whatever it is, that process is actually going to operate. So that's where our tool really fits in, is in verifying and assuring yourself that the business processes are going to work exactly as a user will use them, clicking on the buttons, going through to the fulfillers, approving, that whole workflow all the way through. It's going to tell you whether that's going to work on a Monday morning. I don't believe the tools that are on the Upgrade Center will do that for you.
Very good. Thank you, Paul. And we can always pick it up at a later stage, Thomas. One final question that has come in from Dominic. Thank you. How do you improve the review of skipped records? Where in the framework would you place it? Yeah,
it's a really good question. Again, we get asked that a lot, and there's some differing views on the whole issue of skipped records. Now, I'm gonna give you my perspective on this, and not everyone will agree, and that's fine. We certainly welcome healthy debate on this, but my view is that if you're confident in your test coverage, checks all of your business process flows sufficiently, and you run all of those regression tests against the upgraded version of ServiceNow with all of the updates applied. So you basically don't go through all of the updates one by one, you just apply them all, and that helps you get more towards standard ServiceNow, because the more you skip, obviously the further you're getting away from out of the box. So if you can move more towards out of the box and all of your regression tests pass, then you're in a great place because you've made an incremental step forward. So that would be my view. If, of course, some processes fail, identified by AutomatePro, then you need to start looking at what the impact was and which ones. So you need to piece that out. But we've gone through this process with a couple of customers, and really we're challenging a little bit the approach where you have to go through every skipped record, because that is a hugely time-consuming exercise. So if you can avoid doing that, then you obviously have massive time savings.
Paul, we are running almost close to the end, but we've got a couple of minutes, and a question came in from Valor about real cost savings when automated testing is used.
Yeah.
And, I've got a quick perspective before I pass the mic over to you, Paul.
Sure.
One way of measuring it, and we do in a real world, is the number of test hours that our customers actually run. And we have quite a few customers that actually consume thousands of test hours every month. And it's easy to put a dollar value to a test hour purely on human cost alone if you were to do it manually. And we can share some of those metrics. And we have also other customers that have gone public with the savings that they've experienced directly. Arm Holdings being one, where they actually saved $100,000 a year alone on upgrades only. So there's a few anecdotes as well as metrics that we capture. Paul, I don't know if there's any, I hope that's helped, by the way. And Paul, I don't know if there's another dimension you'd like to add.
Yeah, I think, well, the only thing I would add, I think that was a great answer, Thomas, but I think the thing that that I would add is that actually sometimes you don't realize the benefits you get of automating the whole of the process. It's very hard sometimes to measure the things that you've mentioned are the very tangible things that, in terms of test hours or so on. But one of the key things that Gartner are very hot on at the moment is the whole idea of value stream management, which is really about sort of lean methods and removing rework and things. And it's very hard to measure at the moment with the kind of manual processes that a lot of companies use. Is how much rework are we getting, when there's a change being made and it's not been tested for 2 weeks and there's an impact on it, and everyone's running around trying to find out who introduced that problem and fixing it, and then you break something else. There's a lot of rework and manual processes in there. And I think, as well as those very tangible benefits that you mentioned, Thomas, I think moving to a more automated, repeatable, scalable kind of delivery method will exponentially, give benefit in any organization.
I think that's a good point, Paul, and often that is where significant additional value is gained. Right, we are 25 seconds over the allotted time, so I'd like to thank everyone that joined. I hope you found it useful, and we'll share the slides and the recording, and hopefully look forward to seeing you in the next session before too long. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everyone.
Great, thank you. Thanks, everyone, for attending. Thanks, Thomas.
Bye.
Bye.